Oh, thanks everybody for coming. This is our last TalentQ event before the big event, when we of course saved the best for last. So this is our account management panel, and our topic today is about our account managers living in the past and how can we transition to this new era of account management. And we have some very esteemed panelists with us today. I wanted to thank all of you for driving up from the city. I know it was originally planned for downtown, and I know there was a lot going on with the Obama aftermath, so thank you for taking time out of your day. And today we're going to be moderated by John Greening. He's going to go through and have each of them give a little bit of information about their roles and what they're doing in their respective agency environments. And then we'll do some Q&A at the end. So with that, John, take it away.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you guys for coming. You know, even if you are not imagining a career in account management or in an agency, there's a lot of relevance here because wherever you are going to be, you're going to have customers. Customers are people who buy what you have to sell. And if we aren't selling anything, we don't have any reason to be paid. And we are always selling something, and by that what I mean, and I even hate the word selling. I don't think you sell anybody anything. You set up the predisposition to buy so that when your solution shows up, it's automatically the right thing to do. But this will be a conversation that won't necessarily be about the ins and outs about how to pick up checks at dinner and how to order the expensive bottles of wine and all of that kind of stuff. Although that is an art form. That is an art form. But rather, this will be more about how you serve customers today in the advertising and marketing area. And I think that there are no better people to talk about that than people from the agency, because they come across more different customers in their day than the average bear. If you're working on a craft, you're going to go about a foot wide and about a mile deep in cheese, and after a while there's just so much cheese you can handle. But in an agency, you have a breadth of clients, so you're going across a whole number of categories. And I find the easiest way to learn is to compare and contrast, and I think we'll have some very interesting insights from that. So what I'd like to do is, just before we get started, is to have each of you to maybe give a little introduction, tell us your path on how you got to where you are, tell us what you like about your job and what you hate about your job.
I work at Leo Burnett. I'm the Director of Account Management, and I also have some account responsibilities. So the Department of Account Management has about 310 people in it across Leo Burnett and ARC, which we consider ourselves now kind of one company with two brands. And I have been the Director of Account Management for about 4 years. I've been the head of the Allstate account for 10 years. I understand you might have participated in some of my clients here. I also am oversight for Car and Fifth Third Bank right now, and two of the other trends. I've worked in almost every category, from airlines to service restaurants, cars. I spent several years in cars. So the thing I think is really cool about being on the advertising side of the business is that you can work for one company and have lots of interesting experiences. It really is kind of a great life. It's a very stressful position, so it's not easy, but you do have an enormous amount of variety. And so I've been doing it for over 25 years. I did start my career, I graduated from Duke University. I started my career in Washington, D.C., working for the National Organization for Women as a lobbyist. And then I did some work for a women-owned public relations firm that had a lot of not-for-profit organizations as clients. And I did some interesting, I actually did a public service, I had no idea I was going to say this. I did a public service campaign. It's my first thing in advertising is I worked to do a public service campaign. It was a radio campaign for the Women's Equity Action League, that's the client, or the Women's Legal Defense Fund, I think was the client. And the name of the campaign was "It Pays to Be a Man." And that was our tagline, "It pays to be a man." And we had all of these radio spots, all got public service time about, how how girls were getting paid then $2 an hour to babysit, and boys were getting paid $5 to mow the lawn, and so we had this whole pay equity. It's a little frightening that conversation is still happening today, but that's how I got started. I got into it, and I'm from Chicago. I was living in Washington, D.C. I came back and was visiting my parents, and decided I wanted to wiggle my way into Leo Burnett and see if they would give me a job, and they did. So that's how I'm here. I did leave Leo Burnett for a few years and moved to Detroit, outside of Detroit, worked on the Buick business for General Motors, and then kind of came back and actually went full service and was working on the Oldsmobile business for Leo Burnett. So it's kind of a little bit about where I've been. I've always been in account management. What I love about my job, I really love the creativity. I love I really like being part of the creative product. I think that's an important thing that sometimes is lost when people think they're going into account management. They're in the business side of things. Well, if you're in an agency, you're still in the creativity business. It's not we don't have a creative department. We need to be a creative agency. So I like the creativity. I do also like the client relationship piece of it, because we really can't do anything without that client relationship. And I love your opening, because I actually have this. I've got some notes about some of the things that I talked to about in the department and one of the things I'm kind of known for analogies, and one of the things I say is that we don't sell anybody anything. But so instead of like Mark Tutzel, our global chief creative officer, is like, account manager has to sell, account manager has to sell. Like, no, Mark, we have to sell. We have to plan the buy. Because I also don't believe that we really sell anybody anything. That we create the environment for which it could be bought, and that's probably the number one job of an account manager. There's a lot that goes into that. The thing I hate about my job is I hate having so many. I actually hate email right now, but I also I hate email communication, and I hate that I'm now in a position where most of the time, like a whole lot more of what happens in my job now is that problems kind of all land on my lap. So somebody screws up and I have to fix it, or I'm the one who gets the client call that says, things aren't good. And then, so that's not as much fun as really, kind of coming up with ideas. So I think that's what I hate most about my job. I really do like this. So.
Thank you, Dina.
Hi, my name is Michelle Johnson, and I work at Ogilvy here in Chicago. I'm the Executive Group Director on the North American Blade business for SC Johnson. And some of you might have picked up that I'm not actually from Chicago. It's a little tricky to pick it up sometimes. I came here from New York, but you might also understand that I'm not from New York either. But I am actually from New Zealand, and so my kind of career started in New Zealand, and funnily enough, I ended up in Chicago. I did not think I would end up in Chicago. I thought I was going to stop in New York, which was where my ultimate was. It had only been my ultimate for a couple of years, but it was where I was going to end up. But funnily enough, working in the New York office, there was a pitch going on for SC Johnson, so a whole bunch of us worked on the pitch, and then we won the business, and so a whole bunch of us moved over here, which was actually really good, because also being a transplant to the US and then being a transplant to another city meant that for the first time, I wasn't doing this by myself, but I was doing this with a whole bunch of people. So none of us knew our way around, none of us knew restaurants, none of us knew how to find an apartment. The only thing we did, and I was telling John about it, was when we got here, we got very excited and told the broker that the only thing all of us wanted was an apartment with laundry in it. John informed me was something that all apartments in Chicago did. I said, well, when you've lived without one for 4 years and you just sleep downstairs, it's not that exciting. So, but anyway, before that I was in, I kind of worked in a number of different offices, but always gone back to Ogilvy. So I think one of the things is when you find a culture that you really love, especially within advertising, because it can be a little tough sometimes, as you alluded to, you end up staying there. And one of the things that I found is that this is my fifth Ogilvy office, and in every office I've worked in, the culture has been very, very similar, and I guess that we can credit that to the gentleman called Mr. Ogilvy, and that even years and years later, after 60 odd years since he started the agency, that the culture that he embedded was so strong that it's still alive today. But also, as well as on the journey of continuing to go back to Ogilvy offices, I ended up working in other smaller offices, but other agencies, TBWA, Leo Burnett, but then also mid-sized agencies, much smaller agencies, which is really interesting because you get this, you start to then grow and learn kind of beyond just account management, because you understand that there are so many other facets to this business, and it's the way that each business has their own operating tools, their own structure, those sorts of things. So everything kind of piles on top of you sort of work in account management. Also worked in a number of different accounts, which is really exciting because you become this vague expert, and I use the word vague expert because your client is always the expert in this piece of business. And working on S.C. Johnson, I guess the one thing is that I may be one of the few people in the world that gets really, really excited and potentially too excited about something that you can find in the supermarket for $3. But and other people get very excited about working on cars, and I have been very excited about working on cars. I've worked in the car business, and that is pretty good. And also for carpet, not so exciting, but still it needs to be sold. Pharmaceuticals, all sorts of things, and I guess that's one of the other beauties of this, is you get exposed to so much, and after a while you can start to choose what you would like to work on. So you have the advantages of working in an industry where you can kind of choose your culture after a while. You can choose the category you'd like to work in, you can choose the, almost down to kind of the product you'd like to work in. So I think that, you know, from that point of view, I guess we're all pretty lucky, really. One of the things that I love about the industry is that I guess you go to work every day, and every day is different. And because I have a boredom threshold that's very, very low, if I went in every single day and I knew exactly what I was going to do and I did that, I think I would have to move on every day. But you know, you write out your to-do list, and if you actually manage to look at it and you say, oh, you get one of those things done, then you can high-five yourself. But so that the every day being different is huge for me. The other part of it is that you work with a team of wannabes, because anybody who's in agency is a wannabe director, or a wannabe writer, or a wannabe designer, or a jewelry designer. So you get exposed to a lot of really interesting people. But just even the day-to-day work is really fascinating. Something that doesn't thrill me quite so much, I'm with you on email. It kind of, you go to your email box and there's far too many in the dark type, and it can become a little overwhelming. But also, to me, it kind of makes me a little sad, which might sound pathetic, but it makes me a little sad because I remember 100 million years ago when I started, because I'm that old, we used to pick up the phone and the clients used to phone us, and we were talking in the lobby about relationships. And I think one of the things that makes it very hard to build a relationship, or is slowing down the building of a relationship in our industry, is the fact that communication is no longer via phone, where you can ask somebody how their day is, where you can chat to them and you find out so much information about them. And you build this relationship and this trust very quickly, whereas it just doesn't happen over email. That's the thing that makes me really sad.
Thank you, Michelle.
Hi everyone, I am Monica Hudson. I'm with Zocalo Group, which is based here in Chicago. The sister agency is Ketchum, so some of you might be more familiar with Ketchum on the PR side. We're all part of Omnicom. I'm a senior account supervisor on the Frito-Lay and Subway restaurants business. And Zocalo Group, we're about 5 years old. So for those who aren't super familiar with it, it is a social media and word of mouth marketing agency. Really our job to be done is just really finding ways to make different clients and brands that we work with recommend and talked about. So spend a lot of time different ways to do that. I was in your seats very recently. I graduated from the full-time program in December of 11, so I guess I was the last graduating class. I've been at Zocalo now for about the path I've taken, so prior to grad school, I been in account management on the agency side my entire career, but I started out in traditional PR. I worked for quite a few different boutique PR agencies in the Chicago area, and spent a lot of my time in QSR, CPG. I did a lot of alcohol and spirits brands, and I guess for me, love the traditional PR space, but as I was kind of wrapping up my time in that before coming to grad school, I was seeing more and more of how we talk with people, how we engage, was really changing. That shift to social, obviously the growing importance of digital, and it just wasn't, in the experiences I was having, I was kind of seeing that being tapped on to agencies as this capability, and it was, I think some people do it really well and others weren't, and so I was like, I think it's time to make a change, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I actually thought I want to leave account management, yes. And so I went back to grad school, to this program, and lo and behold, 15 months later, I came out and obviously went back to account management. And I think that points to actually the reason why, or one of the things that I love about my job, and it kind of reiterates what both of you had said, but it's that no 2 days are the same. You can leave just about every day, or at least I feel like I leave just about every day, having tackled some, interesting challenge, some good, some bad. There's just no 2 days the same, and I'm not someone who get bored rather easily, and so I think account management and the agency really just really fits me well for that reason. But at Zocalo, I have kind of a split role, and it's actually what kind of drew me to the agency. But I'm on the account management side for the business. I manage the day-to-day client relationship there. And I then separately work in account planning and strategic planning role for Subway restaurants. So it's kind of cool in that it allows me to do two separate things that I really enjoy, and the positions and how they kind of work with the clients that I work on. Just kind of fell into my lap, and it was a great opportunity. But I think that also goes to show that while some cultures, maybe the client side, some corporations can maybe be a little more structured, or there's more constraints from what you can and cannot do. Something I love about the agency side is that account management is that you can really, you can kind of take hold of your career and you can try different things. You can spend time working in different industries. I've worked in quite a few, and kind of become that pseudo expert, like you said. You can try different career paths within the agency world, which is kind of what I've done in the split role that I have. And so I think it's a unique type of organization that allows you to do that. Let's do what until today, through meetings. I feel like you meet about everything. I don't feel like there's, which is good. I mean, obviously communication is great, but sometimes I just feel like it's a little tedious to get to what needs to be done when we're in a meeting every day. You'll meet about everything. But I guess that would also be your email too, because they would pop up there first. And then sometimes it's but yeah, I guess I don't have huge complaints.
Great, thanks, Mom.
Great. Hello, everybody. My name is Lori Nations, and I'm the Group Account Director at Havas. And we were Euro RFCG until about a month ago, so maybe you're more familiar with Euro than Havas, but we're now Havas. I have a confession to make, and that is that I love email.
Somebody else.
I'm the one sending them off. No. My path to being in the advertising industry is a little different. I started out in journalism, and I was actually a radio news reporter for 2 years in Springfield, Illinois, covering government before I had an opportunity to join an advertising agency. So I like to say that I went from seeking the truth to searching the truth. Jumped from journalism to advertising. But I worked at Draftfcb before it was Draftfcb. We were just chatting about that a little while ago. For about 10 years, and then I left there to join Bray Direct and work on the United Airlines Mileage Plus account. I was only there for a year because another agency, who shall remain nameless, stole the business from us.
You don't have it anymore.
And from there, I went to Havas, and I've been at Havas for the last 5 years. What I love about the business is right outside my office door is a Razor scooter, and I can scoot from meeting to meeting if I want. I love that we have a ping pong tournament every year called Paddle Royale that everybody in the agency can sign up for and participate in. I love that we had a big Halloween party last Wednesday, and everybody dressed up, and our chief strategy officer won the costume. He dressed up as Gangnam Style.
That's James Lou.
It was James Lou. Had the dancers and everything. What I seriously do not like about the business is I really don't like email either. But I don't like when my clients get a new CMO. As everybody up here, I'm sure, has experienced many times, when you get a new CMO, you have to prove yourself all over again, and more times than not, that CMO is also trying to prove themselves and wants their own agency. So that is just not fun, and I don't like that. So there you go.
Thank you. So I'm the last one, so I really have to try hard not to repeat anything. So it's not going to happen. My name is Rahul Roy. I am a graduate of this program. As I was telling John, I'm the last of the dinosaurs. So I have a master's in advertising management. It changed to IMC the year after I finished. So my path is, again, by the accent, hopefully, as you see, slightly different. I grew up in India, and I was an English major, and I had absolutely no clue what I wanted to do. I had pretensions of being a writer, so somehow I bungled my way into J. Walter Thompson, New Delhi, as a copywriter. And I swear, this is a true story. I love telling this one. I was called into the office of the creative director 3 weeks later. He said, "Yeah, you're that new copywriter." I thought I was so cool because the creative director called me in. And he said, "That is the worst writing I've ever seen. You have no future." I mean, he didn't even say get out. He just said you have no future. And he was like, he kind of just waved. He didn't really fire me, so I walked out. I didn't know what to do. And my buddy intern was in account management. He said, "Don't worry, we've got a lot of research projects over here." So I literally wandered into account management. I didn't go back to an agency after graduating because I was too scared of doing that again. But after having a couple of really boring jobs, I there was something about the vibe of an agency, even though it's in a completely different culture and country. You'd be astonished to know how similar it is across countries, and I think Michelle will speak to that. So I wandered back into account management, and I fell in love with it. And when I got a little more serious, that's when I came to Northwestern here. And been in account management in agencies my 20-plus career. Now, my new role at Draftfcb is I'm the director of account management for a much smaller department than I am. We have about 160 people, so functionally, I lead the department. My client engagements are Young Brands, Kmart, and Diners Club, so that's the other joke about variety. I had someone walk into my office when I was given the Diners Club and said, "Well, that makes no sense. You're the guy who runs the redneck brands." What do you do with Diners Club? Diners Club is my last hope at global credibility. So I've been an account guy for a long time. What do I love about it? Very similar, so I actually will repeat. I absolutely love the fact that we work with such a bunch of creative people, and given the fact that somewhere inside me there's a failed writer, but the fact that I can actually work and be exposed to extraordinarily creative people who write and art direct and draw and do creative things so well, it's just great being around them. I could never get that anywhere else. I've said no to client jobs 3 times because at the last minute I've choked because I'm just like, I know you'll pay me a lot more money, but this is going to be a lot more fun. And what do I hate about it? I'm going to actually pick up on that. For instance, I've worked on Young Brands for the last 8 years now. And in 8 years, I've had 6 CMOs in KFC. Every time a new CMO comes and says, "Oh, why aren't you doing good work?" I was like, "Guess why? Because the last guy wanted to do something completely different." And it's a good part of our job, the senior account people, where we become the continuity for our clients. But the toughest part about the job is learning to adapt. And I sometimes hate that I'm going to teach another client what? You know? So that's probably the tough part. I would say I haven't found myself hating this job in 22 years. So I think that's very important.
That's great. Thanks, Rahul. You know, from here on out, we're going to drop this whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of thing. And this is called a panel, and I know that agency people are never at loss for an opinion. So the other thing that I want to do is I want to drop the whole client agency thing. I don't think that that's helpful because that's us versus them. You know, we all know that that doesn't breed the best kind of thinking. But I do have some questions just about the overall business that I think might be an interesting way of kicking off the conversation. And these guys are all out there and they all want to be successful. You know, we go around and I want to be a success. My question to you is what does success look like today? In other words, how do clients, when you say you get that new client and they're talking about, okay, best work and all that, well, that's not really it. I mean, what is it that they are looking for? And what qualifies your relationship on the macro level as a success, and then what do you do as individuals to make it successful, if that makes sense? And by the way, just chime in. From here on out, I'm not going to call on anybody.
I'll start. Then I'll try not, then somebody can repeat, hopefully. Defining success, and maybe I hope my filter goes beyond account management. I heard what you said. Defining success on our side of the business is, I think, you can't forget whether you're a business manager or whatever our function is, that we're in the business of ideas. So I think to me, that's the one thing that I find that even all the good clients, at least, that we work with, they genuinely treasure people on the team, not by their function, but by who's that person who comes to the table with an idea. So the example I've got is, there's a producer at our agency who we work with, who's just an extraordinarily gifted guy, but the clients never know what he does. Because one day he's literally reconstructing our PowerPoint templates for us. He's also a TV producer. I can send him on his phone if I'm too busy for a client meeting, and he'll write the contact report and act like an accountant. So, but I think what differentiates them is there's always an idea that he brings in. Then he's able to say, here's how that idea works and how that helps your business. So that would be maybe the one thing I think if I had to pick one in the business of ideas. So make sure you have an idea.
Just creative people have ideas? I mean, you use that example.
No, and I use that specifically because he's a producer.
Yeah.
He's not the traditional art director, copywriter. He's just a guy who loves the business and he'll tell you a new way of doing things.
So I'll pick up on that, and I actually want to defend something that Michelle said earlier, because she said one of the things she likes about the job is that she gets to work with all these interesting people. And I think that, you know, one of the things is what is it today versus before. And I do think that when I got into the business, which was a very long time ago, there was this sense that account management was the business side, and that we were the business people. And to be honest, we hired a lot of MBAs. We don't hire MBAs anymore in account management. Usually, but sometimes people get into MBAs, they want more money than we're going to pay. That's more fun. But you know, when I'm hiring somebody from an account manager, I'm looking for somebody who's interesting and creative just as much. And we get to work with all these interesting people, but I need interesting people in account management. You have to be an interesting person. This is a relationship business. And it sounds kind of like, oh, I have to be good with people. But the truth is we are in a relationship business, which means you could go to the point where you need to be insightful. I mean, this whole CMO, which I would totally agree with you, I mean, we have got to be able to be great. So what does success look like? You have to be a great listener. I would say that's the highest thing. You have to have a lot of courage, because you need to be able to stand up for what you or the agency or something believes with. And clients are looking for people now who have courage, who can help them find a path. We often talk to, you know, it used to be Leo Burnett's famous for saying you have to know your client's business better than than they do. Well, that's going to happen. That isn't just that is never going to happen today. The only thing I'm going to say that I think Leo was wrong on, and maybe he was right for the time, but it's not true for today. I worry more about whether or not that we know our business. I actually have a lot of people in account management who know the client's business really well, but if I ask them what the top 10 campaigns that won at Cannes last year, they might not be able to answer the question. And that bothers me. Because what I want is interesting, creative people who are students of creativity and students of advertising, which is a creative field, so that they're interesting and they can have a conversation with a client who is deep in actuarial tables but needs to understand what's working in the creative market today, what is being discussed in social media, what are the consumer trends, and who are bringing a new relevance to it. And I think that's why I'm sure every one of us has had the opportunity to kind of go to the client side and has done exactly what Raul did, was like, you know what, I get to have a wine cooler in my office, and I'm not going to say I'm Mad Men and I'm drinking out the scotch every night, but most of my clients, they all have policies that you can't even drink in your office. You wouldn't have anybody working at Leo Burnett on tape, right? So, but, I mean, the thing is, the best question I ask in an interview, because I find out more about somebody, is what they do for fun, and a lot of times the people don't know that really is the most important thing. I need to know that we have interesting, creative people who like to have something to bring to the party besides just their smarts, besides just an interest in the business. This isn't an ordinary job. This is about ideas, and you need to be you need to be an interesting, exciting person who develops a relationship with someone who can listen with courage and can bring something to the party that I can learn from. Everybody wants to learn from somebody else. So I think there's a greater emphasis on that today than there certainly was in, Roger, whatever Roger's last name is.
Sterling. He's my hero. I missed it by that much. I got there at 75 and the Roger years were coming to an end.
So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question.
Anybody else? Ideas are something that, you all talk about. And you talk about that ideas can come from anywhere. It might be helpful for the students to hear just what is the not what's the definition of an idea, but what does an idea do? And if an idea comes from anyone, what kind of skills do you need to be a good ideator?
I heard a word definition of idea. Somebody try that. I don't know whether what a good working definition of an idea is, but I do think you have to know it to see it. And I'm not sure that I think that good ideas come from anywhere. I don't think it is not my job in account management to come up with the idea. And in fact, if I did, it probably wouldn't go anywhere. If I did, it would be because I fed it to the creative team that needed to kind of bring it forth and execute. I think sometimes we talk a lot about ideas, like it's let's just talk ideas, but they really are nothing until they're executed either. So there does have to be a real craft to the idea as well. And I think though that it is my job, the job of the account management team, to inspire ideas. And inspiring those ideas, and to interrogate the ideas, and to sell or plan to buy for the ideas, and then to protect the ideas. In that way, you have to know what it is when you see it. So I guess the best way to kind of talk, it is sort of this thing that's kind of amorphous, hard to decide. But so I worked on the Allstate Mayhem campaign, and when I first saw this idea, one of the things that I said is, I've been working on insurance for 10 years, and I have not seen that before. I have seen a lot of ideas in insurance, and they are all, let's do that again. And I literally said, I really can't tell whether this is good or not. But I know I've never seen it before, and that makes me excited. So I think at some level, the definition of an idea is putting creativity against a problem and something that is that you haven't seen before, something that, and then I think it is also something that you can say, I can get people to take action against that. I can inspire people to take action. Whereas in the old days, another thing that used to happen in, I think, the Mad Men era or whatever, which I wasn't that old, but is we used to be about, filling media rounds. So what's the TV commercial, what's the print ad, and that was sort of easy. We don't, really great ideas now the media comes after instead of before. And so I think the test of a great idea is it something that I can truly execute throughout in any way that I want to engage a consumer. So when we did, Mayhem has started. We started in television, but it is a bigger idea than a TV idea, and so that's kind of when you know you have something that's beyond a one-off, is because it can actually become part of people's lives.
I think that ideas in account management have to extend to the business part of our business, which is we are in business to grow revenue and earn money and stay in business. And I think that one of the things for junior account people or just getting into business is that they think that the whole realm of ideas, be they creative or more on the business side, are not their responsibility, and as Nina said, technically it is not. But I think that one of the keys to success, if you want to talk about, how to kind of climb up the ladder and, make your way, is to have ideas. And I have seen junior account people come up with ideas that haven't been huge, brand transformational ideas, but ideas that have contributed to the client's business and to agency revenue. We did a campaign for one of my clients, and one of the art directors created these little, almost like Japanese anime type characters that went with different ice cream products. And one of the account people said, wouldn't it be a great idea to put those characters on the crew on their t-shirts? This was sorry, I don't still at retail, it's Sonic Drive-In. It was a great idea, and the kids who did these roller skating car hops, loved these t-shirts. It was incremental revenue for the agency. It was a great idea. So I think that always be thinking about small ideas as well, especially in account management when they increase the bottom line, when they increase your revenue. That's something that I will take notice of as your supervisor.
One thing I would build on what Nina said, said account people inspire ideas. And I think the other role there, what leads to the really great ideas, also taking the time to really understand what is the challenge or what's the problem. And that falls on us to really have those conversations with our clients and understand, what are we really looking to accomplish with these big ideas? Because it's interesting, and I've seen it happen where you're briefed on what the issue or the challenge is or what the job to be done is, and oftentimes that needs a lot of discussion around still to really get to what the root issue is. And I think that's where our job in even kind of starting those first sparks of that idea and knowing how to inspire and direct that comes from too.
The other thing is that there is an opportunity nowadays to broaden the idea of what an idea is. Because we have at our fingertips more channels in which to reach the consumer than what we ever have before. So an idea, so you could sit there and you could be working as an account person in the digital realm, or you could be working as an account person within sort of a more traditional plan, or you could be across everything or someone within a shopper. But the fact that you can have this either small idea or a large idea, but it can actually gain momentum, and this is a technical word, it can get larger and larger and larger depending on what the medium is, I think is where as an account person you can start playing that role. Because if someone comes up with this idea, it's your opportunity to spread that across, I think the rest of the agencies. So there is, and
I have, somebody came up with the idea, so 6 months, within 6 months of after we launched the campaign, we noticed that people were posting on our Facebook page, them dressing up for Pennsylvania for Halloween. So somebody, an account person, came up with the idea that we would actually run through Facebook a Halloween costume contest. You know, and that just helped just a great idea. And it wasn't the big mega idea, but to take what was happening in culture and then jump on it and do something with it is the kind of creativity that we're really looking for.
I think with some of the channels nowadays, it doesn't have to cost a fortune. And that is something that clients us as well. We do something very cost effectively just with social media, and it can be amplified sometimes more than what it can through a medium like TV.
You know, that's a listening audience. Inspiring ideas or intriguing. I'm going to offer here's a definition of an idea based on what you guys are saying. Creative thought that inspires some action. You know, because I just think if it's as simple as that, we as accounting people or business people or clients can say, is it some kind of an original thought that someone hasn't thought of before that makes people choose? And I mean, that Facebook promotion example is right. You know, because I think it gets really scary, especially in the account management field. I've probably been in this so longer, so we know that feeling when you walked into a creative person's office and say, I have an idea, and they say, fuck off. It's just, you know, it's like you're the account guy. No? Luckily, those days have changed.
Right.
And I think there's a lot more integration, at least in most of the agencies that are at least attempting to do it well, where to get the meaning of integration, we're working more together so people are more open, but still there's a little bit of fear factor. I'm not a writer, I'm not a director. Am I allowed to have an idea? So this is a thought, that's an insight or something. That's an idea, go for it. That's what I tell our account teams all the time. You can have an idea on how to change the process. It doesn't matter. It's an idea, do something.
That's great. That's great. I have one more question, and I want to turn it over to the group, because I'm sure they have thousands of questions. But we talked about the fact up front that everybody in their life is going to have a customer. You know, we also talked about that, you know, you want to satisfy that customer or even go beyond, because a happy customer is a loyal customer, on and on and on. Tell me, what are the expectations of clients today? What do you think are the most important things that you do in what you do and in who you inspire to set the standard? What are the standards that you set for that level of service? And where are the biggest breakdowns?
Breakdowns? I thought you'd give me an easy Come on, John.
Rahul, you in particular, you know, we go back too far.
I'll start with the first one and allow people to think about the second one, which is more difficult. One of the things, for instance, we've instituted on at least a few of the clients I work on is because clients have just become so much more demanding because their business is so much more demanding. And so that's part of the, whether it's them or us, we are required to have something new or do that project faster, quicker, get everything done all the time. So one of the things that seems to work really well, we literally have instituted the 10 things you never asked for. And we present to them once every 2 months the 10 things you never asked for. But that allows us a little bit of that mental bandwidth to say, this is not a project I actually asked for, I don't have to get 10 layers of approval before I present it to a CMO. And the only definition of that was what I instituted on Young Brands is, I'm only presenting to CMO and above. Now you can invite your entire marketing department to that 10 things you asked for, the CMO attends that meeting. Because I think it puts the pressure on us as an agency then to say, I'm going to give this guy a gift of something that he didn't ask for. And that builds a relationship that inspires more ideas, it makes you feel like you're not just doing more of a job. So that's the first half. The breakdowns, I like to think about that.
Well, I will pick up from there because my breakdown occurs in that. And that is the time to do that is eaten up by the miracles that we pull off to meet the client's needs, changing deadlines, things are about to ship and the CMO has a change, and all sorts of things like that. And I think the client satisfaction with the day-to-day clients is really high when you perform those miracles. When that kit gets to retail on time, despite the fact that it was pulled, off at the printer and a change was made. So that kind of eats into the time to come up with, the lucky strike extras that we want to give our clients. I don't know if I'm answering the question or not.
Well, you just said you need to perform miracles. That's what clients expect.
So I do think that is where we get the highest marks and the appreciation of baskets of cookies and all of that great stuff that the clients appreciate so much. I think that, yes, I will end it there.
I think the expectation from the client to agency is huge nowadays, because once upon a time, I remember when I first started, you went along to a meeting, free, spun out a TV ad, it may not have worked, you just read it. It was a lot of money, everybody loved everybody, it was a pretty simple task. Then we kind of moved into this world of, you're an extension of the marketing thing. So, and that's when we all discovered that there was something to this whole kind of relationship building thing. Trust each other. But it was still a little bit within the realm of go to a meeting, get briefs, spin out a TV, and if it didn't work that time, well, you kind of got a bit of stuff. That's weird. Nowadays, though, it seems to, we're not really this extension of the marketing. We are part of their day. I think what we realise now is that we're not this major part of this day that once upon a time we thought we were. We thought that they lived and breathed us. We live and breathe them, but they don't necessarily live and breathe us anymore. We're only a fraction of their day, but the expectation of us in that small fraction is enormous. And your role is now expected to extend from not just around kind of the CMO and the marketing team, but the CEO, the CFO, the COO. The amount of time that is spent on operational issues versus just coming up with ideas, I think, is phenomenal. The amount of time that we spend with the R&D people within the client's business, the research team within the client's business. So you're not just somebody within the agency who kind of is the person that pulls all of your agency people together. You are then supposed to kind of lasso the entire client team together as well. So that expectation has got bigger and bigger. But then pile on top of that the fact that nowadays also there's a validation and an accountability that was never ever there. And that is the thing that can kind of make or break the relationship a little bit as well. And validation and accountability doesn't just come in at budget point of view. You've got a client who might sit there and say yes to every creative idea that you put on the table, but the reason they'll say yes to it is potentially because there is a research process involved that is going to say no. So I don't need to say it. So I think the role and the expectation is huge, and I think that there is probably more appreciation, but it's just made it probably a little tougher to be seen as the creative agency and the ideas agency, because you are in all things to all people across the business nowadays. And again, I don't know if that answers your question.
It's well said. On top of a lot of reasons, things I don't like about the business. I would say. I think what we're also was so interesting is we do some of the same things, but it's a little sad that we have to create something to say, we want to bring you the 10 things that you never thought about, because by the way, that is why you hired us. But that isn't what they're asking for. So I think that the problem that we have is that not all clients, only really the best ones, which are the top tier, and not the majority necessarily. So if any of you become clients, the point is they should be tapping into us. And the other thing is that it's kind of gotten into a little bit of a bad business model. They don't want to pay us for our ideas. They want to pay us for our hours, and they want top talent on the business. And top talent costs money, and you've got to pay for it, and you've got to give us a little creative freedom. I wish more clients were saying, I hired you for creativity, and I don't want you spending all of your time doing all this other crap that we're making you do. But that is where we build the trust, which I think is what clients are asking more and more for, what clients really want. And I think account management is more important than ever. because there are so many ways that we can engage the consumer. There are so many things that have to be stayed on top of. And I think that the client really feels like they need to have a partner that the account team is the window into that partnership. It does not control, I have this grid I show at the agency I just completely forgot about, which is the top of it says collaboration, at the bottom of it says control, and on one side it says service, and the other side it says product. When I got into this business of account management, as Leo Burnett was called client service. And I actually was one of the people who changed that, and it was, we controlled the client relationship and the how high, you jump, how, client says jump, you say how high. I still think we have to, client says jump, you still have to say how high. You don't say no, you say, you reframe it, or you kind of, let's figure out how we're going to do this. Really the people, it got to the point where the people who were controlling the client relationship were controlling it for their own personal gain as well as for the agency. We've gotten rid of all those people. And we have to, it's now a collaborative business, so now you're up in the upper axis, right? And we still have to service the client. But we have to be more focused on our product as well. So we're looking for more of our time and effort focusing on the side in the upper quadrant where it's about collaboration and service of this terrific product. And I mean product, I mean our product, the product of the agency, which is something that is made in the marketplace. So it is an idea or ideas that is actually produced and made in the marketplace working on behalf of the client's business. That's our product. That's what we produce. That's what we do. That's our reputation. We have to care about that and not just do work that tested well. And in order to build that trust, I do think we do. I'm not saying we don't also have to service, but I think that's the really big difference from when I first got into the business to where it is now. And I think that collaborative, now we have strategy, planning, creative, all these production, all owning the client relationship. We work in teams of expertise, and sometimes they are even with other agencies. And so that means that you really have to be this great sort of, I mean, we joke about the fact that nothing gets done if it's not done by account management. I mean, a couple weeks ago, and I said, what's happening with this? That my boss, the president of the company, and chief creative officer said, oh, we gave that to that creative team. And I said, oh, did you give it to an account person? No. Has anything happened in the last 2 weeks that you gave it to this creative team? And then, Rich says to me, Nina, can we have an account person? No. It's not going to happen. It isn't going to happen. We get it done. And the clients know we get it done. They know we have to get it done for them, and we have to get it done for the agency. So I think it's
That's great. We've got just a little more than a half hour left, and I want to open it up to questions here from the audience. I know you've got a lot of them, so please. Yeah, Chris.
So listening to all of you, it's very interesting to hear about the journey that you've had to the point where you're at right now. And so I'm interested, I'm not sure how to ask this question, so I'll ask it in a few ways. What are you passionate about, or what motivates you, or what's motivated you to get to where you're at now?
Well, I will say that one of the things that I'm most passionate about, and one of the reasons why I am here today, is because I get a lot of personal satisfaction out of mentoring young account people. It makes me very proud when, and Justin here today is one of my coworkers at Havas, who's also a student here at the IMC. So when I see the little birdies fly from their nest and go on to more senior positions within the agency and beyond in other agencies or wherever their career paths might take them. So that is one of the reasons why I have stayed in account management and I've stayed in agencies and haven't gone, because I really love working with the junior account people and helping them be better account people.
Okay, so I'll go next. Mine is long way. I have a number of friends who are management consultants, so McKinsey, Booz, the classic thing. So there's always a great argument over drinks about what they do more important is what I do more important. So the first thing I always say, you clearly make much more money than I do. But I think what I'm most passionate about, and I always use this argument with them, it says, who sees what you do? nobody sees what you do. Everybody sees what I do, and at every party, everybody talks about my ads. They don't talk about your supply chain management. No. And I think that's genuinely what I'm passionate about. And you know, it's what I hope all account people should be passionate about. Not about being good account people, but being passionate about, and Nina said it earlier, the product we produce, in whatever form that is, because, I mean, consumerism is a great thing, you know, like everyone talks about. That's what I love.
Yeah, I've told this story a million times, but the highlight of my career was we launched Mayhem in the end of June, at the very end of June. And I almost passed out when I opened the door on Halloween. There was a kid who was about 12 years old dressed up as Mayhem. And I'm like, I was shaking. You know, I was literally shaking, going, I said, what are you? He said, you know, he's like, does this, you know, get all skating. And, you know, the week after, was the Northwestern game at Wrigley Field. That Allstate was a sponsor. Do you guys remember this game? And they had to play going in one direction because at the last minute it was decided that the wall at Northwestern, with the ivy on it, everybody's going to run into it. So my entire Allstate was a sponsor. The entire team was going. I said, I'm going to go out. I'm going to be at pink headbands for everybody. I went every sporting goods store in Chicago. They said, oh, we ran completely out of pink headbands for Halloween. I'm thinking, you know, I did this. This is an amazing thing. I'm famous. Yet I didn't have to be the spotlight. I don't have to be, you know. And that's what I thought that idea. But I mean, I can tell you sort of stories about it, not the least of which was the toughest part about that campaign. I don't know if what they really told you last week. I'll tell you the truth. That the toughest part about that campaign was casting Dean Winters. And you can imagine that if we hadn't gotten that right, this campaign wouldn't have been good. And that was a team effort. It was a tough effort, and I had a lot to do with helping the client feel, you know, the client had to trust us on this one. You know, it was a scary thought that, you know, we were taking a risk with this. So anyway, I'd say that, you know, it's just nothing more exciting than to see your ideas work. And I'll tell you what else I like. I like winning awards. Like I've won now 5 Cannes Lions, and that is pretty exciting. I've got 1 million Effies, and I'm like, you know, this is the business of that. You know, you gotta kind of like that.
Can I jump? You know, Allstate, I think, is a perfect example of where the role of account management, because strategically, it's brilliant. I mean, so. I mean, you're asking the creative teams to come up with a competitive, you know, we got to go up. And so certainly your role, because of this box you gave the creatives to work in, and then when you see ideas that fit that box that you all create for the creatives, that's obviously when it really.
Well, it is, I think so there's a lot of trends in the strategy, and I love what you said. I actually one of the things I talked about that's new, I have like written down.
Well, I'm going to let you close. I'm going to let everybody get a closing comment.
You had said earlier about what's the assignment. I will tell you when we get it wrong, it's because we didn't get the assignment right. And too often we jump right to what's the brief, and when we get to the brief, it's like what's the consumer insight, what's going on in the culture, what's the main message communication or something. BS like that. Whereas we missed the basic assignment. And the thing about Mayhem was the basic assignment was get people to care about their coverage. And that we did have an insight that said that people were cutting coverage to get a price. And our competitors were perfectly okay with that. And we aren't okay with that. Allstate's not okay with that. And you can be liable for something. The brief became more about an action, which I think is a trend where you're going to get better work today, is about what do we need, what is going on in people's lives, and how are we going to have affect that. Whereas Reese and Trout, which I hope you don't read anymore, with all due respect, they were fine for the time, but this whole idea about what's the main message communication and the support points doesn't work anymore because that just has brands shouting out bad, just like yapping at you, and we don't get good ideas from there. And I think that kind of, Marty is right, that really understanding what the business challenge is likely to be the greatest inspiration that we have for getting great work.
Any other comments to Chris's question on passion? What makes you passionate?
I'll just say that, so working in an agency where we just focus on the social management space, I mean, it's basic, but I love those spaces. Like, I love to try out what's going on there. I love to see, like, what's working with people, I enjoy, like, that piece of it. And I think if the space that you're working in is something that you truly just love on your own, what better job can you really have? So it's not like a really answer, but I love the space that I'm in. So it makes you want to keep learning, it makes you want to keep exploring, coming up with ideas, and so that all filters back to then providing your client with the best product.
So it sounds like a little bit of curiosity comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Also, I have to tell you, I just have to say one more thing. I've always been the coolest mom. I mean, just stay relevant.
I think the thing is, what makes me passionate about it is that even though when I go out somewhere and someone says, what are you doing? And they go, oh, do you write the ad? No, so we have to go through the list, and you guys just
Well, so you write the ad, and what do you do?
Yeah, and then do you film it? No. Do you draw the pictures? No. So you go through that whole thing, and whereas when you walked in the door, you felt great, when you walk out the door, you don't feel so great. You now realise. But what other job can you go to every day, and you get to play a little bit of an art director, but you don't do it. But you get to protect the art director. You get to play a little bit of a writer because you've got to understand that. You get to play a little bit of the film person because you've got to sit there and work with your production. You get to play a little bit of the mentor and the mum because you've got an entire team that you have to keep motivated, and that team is your analytics team to your creative team. Everybody needs a little different way of mentoring and keeping within and keeping the whole train. You get to play kind of this inspiration for the client every day. So there are so many different hats that you put on. And every meeting you go to is a different hat. Everything you do every day is something quite different. But the fact that you've got this exposure to these amazing things you put on these many, many hats, to me is what keeps me passionate, because I don't know any other type of industry I could ever do. I couldn't do that on the client side, really and truly. I certainly couldn't do it if I worked in a bank. Or management consulting or anything like that. So it's the only job I found every day I can just pick up a million hats and put them all on and continue to keep everybody on that train with it.
That's also
really
a challenge.
Let's move on to another question. Yes.
So it says the accounts are kind of like a group that work with a lot of different teams under the regional agencies. And so my question is, what do you think that helps you to be cross-functional across all the teams? And what is the biggest lesson that you have learned from your experience?
I didn't understand the first part of the question.
What skills or personality, anything that you think helps you be successful at running cross-functional?
Yeah, questions, cross-functional teams and bridging the gap, bridging the silos.
I think if you, at the moment, we have, like I lead a cross-functional team. And the thing is that, master of none.
Yes.
And that's literally what you need to be, because what it is you're going to have an expert of each one of those disciplines. And as long as you can, I think the big part for me is you listen to it, because you do need to know that. But your role in the cross-functional part is making sure that all of those people know how they all integrate together, because that is the
That's the key to success for, say, an integrated organization. So you don't need to become an expert, but if you can pull it all together, that's when you can find the divine.
Yeah, I'd probably, building on that, I'd probably offer maybe 2 essential skills that I can think of. One is you have to think very broadly.
Yeah.
So I think that's almost a requirement. And number 2 is, I don't know if this is a skill, but it definitely is an attitude. You have to have a bias for action.
Yeah.
So again, it has to be, if you think broadly and you're the person in the team who wants to actually get it done, then you're going to be a cross-functional team leader or an account person. There's probably others, but those are the 2 that.
I would say the number one thing that you have to have, which I think, I don't know whether it's a skill or either, but it's a vision. You have to have a vision for where you want it to go, and that's the same thing. It's like you can't get it there. You get first to conceive of it. That's again where the talent and the creativity comes into. So you say, I have a vision, and that vision can be very, very, very specific or very, very broad. It can be as specific as, I want to win a Cannes Lion, and what do I have to do to get there? And then if you've got that, I want to win a Cannes Lion, then when you're looking at the work, you say, is that going to get me there? And if it's not, then you go, I want something better. And it kind of sets that, and I think if you have a vision and the whole integrated team is working against the same vision, then all of the silos melt away. But it is up to us, I think the account management helps. You might not be the one who creates the vision. We have to make sure our teams have vision. And if you got a team around a vision, then you've got a team that's working pretty well. And if you have a team without a vision, so I guess it's also leadership.
I think on a more tactical side, I'll give you 2 pieces of advice. One would be to tell everybody how great they are. And tell them, that these are artists, these are creatives, and they have egos, and, just make sure they feel appreciated. And then feed them. Feed them, take them out to lunch, take them out for drinks. It's great to build a team, socially as well. And the account service person is the de facto leader of the team. So be the organizer of team-oriented activities or meals or events.
Now, what was the second name?
The biggest lesson you learned from the experience.
Biggest lesson in doing cross-functional, in managing cross-functional?
Yeah, or maybe like what you know now that you didn't know before, but you wish you knew before.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think learning to trust is kind of a general theme. I don't know if that's a specific lesson. Learning to trust as account people and as that de facto leader, you're in charge of your account and the client satisfaction, and you get that report card on satisfaction first, and it's hard sometimes to trust that the creatives have it, or that the media people have it, or all of the other silos kind of have it, and just kind of letting go sometimes and trusting other people's opinions. It's more of a general statement, but just having a little bit more faith and trust in that other people care as much as you do.
That's very interesting. Dan Feetson was in here giving about the 9 talents of creative, one of our alums and now Chief Creative Officer at Energy Video. And he said trust was the #1 thing that he looked for in account people. Trust that they had his back, trust that the deadlines were true, trust that they were not saying something different to the client, or even not saying something different from meeting to meeting. And so it's interesting. Trust comes from both sides here.
I guess I'd answer that to be a good listener. I think it's the #1 thing that you need to do is to be a good listener. Because from the listening comes the action that needs to be taken. And when we're not listening enough, we're not hearing the right things.
That's a great one. I read a quote somewhere the other day that talks about, do you listen to understand or do you listen to respond? And I think the biggest failure of account people are those who, they're good account people, and many of them, the first thing they want to do is they want to respond. As opposed to, what are you listening for? Are you listening to understand? I just love that quote. Are you listening to understand? Are you listening to respond? I think that's something, so I think for me that even ties back to what you asked about is, I don't think when I was growing up in the business, I was a really good listener. I was a really good task-oriented project manager. I got shit done. And But I think that took me a while to start the value of listening real quiet, listening to what's happening in the room, not even with your clients, even with your team. Just saying to them, where's the energy coming from? Where's the idea coming from? Who is more passionate about a certain point of view? And if you're good, or at some point become a good team or account leader, you'll be the one, it doesn't have to be your idea, you can go there.
And a bunch of people listening out here. How about some more questions?
Thank you all.
Yeah.
No, I think there's so many ways now for people to reach the consumer, but in account management, it's really a lot about the client as well. And we kind of touched on that. And one thing that I thought was really interesting that everyone started with is that I hate email, and with such a digital age upon us now, where there's pretty much digital is the center of it all. What are some ways to solve that problem with client relationships, building client relationships, kind of moving away from email?
We're tough, and the thing that's the toughest about it isn't even the fact that there's email. Because I could argue that used properly, email is healthy communication, in the same way that Facebook does and Twitter does and everything else, and that we have tools upon ourselves. But like anything else, misused, it's terrible. Used properly, it's great. But I don't think there's anything as important as face-to-face communication. And what's really getting in the way of face-to-face communication is our travel budgets. And it just doesn't work over Skype. And I say often that relationships are not made in meetings. And I get very upset when I find out that the only time that our account people are with their clients is in meetings. Like, how can you possibly have listened and understood keeping them up at night, or whether their kid was sick last week? Understand. And so I just I work really hard to kind of, chief financial officer's not going to get me, but I'm I look at people's expense reports and find out whether or not when they were what's less to the client.